Hello, I'm so excited to interview Dahlia, CEO of Streetwise Mortgages. Now, her and her team have over decades and decades of experience helping real estate investors scale and buy more and more rental properties. And I'm so excited. In today's video, we're going to talk about mortgage hacks of how to buy your next rental property. And it turns out, it seems like the sky's almost the limit. Like there's actually no limit to buying rental properties considering all these mortgage hacks. So let's get into the video. Hello everyone, my name is Tracy here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a former engineer that's now turned a full-time investor managing a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio of stocks and real estate. You are looking to create more income, build your wealth, and live your best life, then definitely hit the subscribe button and that bell notification button to get the latest and greatest videos coming to you every single week. So let's get on with the video. So Dahlia, thanks for joining me again. You and your team have worked with thousands of investors all across Canada, and you've seen all different types of situations, strategies, and methods. Now in today's video, we're gonna talk about the mortgage hacks that you've been seeing and you've been working with across with your team. So why don't we jump into that? Because you have a really good systematic process, and I want to really dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tracy, we're going to talk about several mortgage hacks that help clients build a large portfolio. Okay. And the first hack really is when you're thinking about building your own portfolio is to think, how can I keep most of the returns for myself before you start using other people's money? So one of the things you want to do is use your own equity and savings to grow. So we exhaust that. So first we want to look at your properties and see where we can tap into money in a cheap way, ideally using line of credits, and acquire properties using that money first. But in order to grow your portfolio, a lot of clients tap out with lenders early in the process if they're planning on growing, because every lender has a cap. Okay. And as a client, you don't see how they think, you don't see what their limit is. So if you go about financing in a transactional fashion, meaning you have a deal and you just go to a lender and see if they're going to approve it, you may tap out early on with several lenders, which means that you may have to put a higher down payment later down the road, or pay a higher interest rate, or pay fees. So one of the hacks to first growth hacks is to use your own money, which is equity, set it up in a strategic way, but also go through the planning process with the mortgage broker, which is basically going to help you strategically place the deals with the lenders and get the best financing as far as we can take it before we start to deal with more expensive lenders. So I would max on that first, okay? And that's the planning process that we go through with clients. That's basically part of our financing roadmap methodology to help you as a client maximize on the number of properties you're going to get with the lenders that are going to get you the best cost of money. And that's bucket number one as a hack, okay? Bucket number two, once we've taken that route, is to look at, okay, how are we going to grow using other sources of money? And there are two buckets there. The first one is other people's money, which is called joint ventures. And then the third bucket, which a lot of clients don't know about, is using what's called commercial approvals for residential deals. So let me start with the commercial approvals for residential deals, because that's very cool. Some clients think, okay, I have a single family home, a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex. I just need to, go to my bank and get it approved. But yes and no. There will come a point if you have a large portfolio where you will max out, as I mentioned earlier. The commercial financing allows us to look at the property versus you, Tracy, personally, and your income to get approved for the mortgage. So that method basically looks at the income and expense of the property and sees how much mortgage this property would qualify for. Think about it for a second. This means that we are not reliant on Tracy's personal income to get an approval. And that opens up a completely new horizon for you as an investor. So don't think that if you have a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex, you always have to rely on your personal income to finance it. We finance deals using this commercial method for clients who are not working, or for clients who are self-employed, who are not showing enough income, or for full-time investors that are living off rental income. So that's a very, very cool method and a hack to scale up also beyond just the traditional ways of getting finance.
So on that note, I find that really, really interesting because like um, some of my audience have been asking, well, what if you decide to move into a multiplex? Like say you bought a multiplex for you to move in, you moved in one unit, but it's a fourplex. So does that mean that you could potentially get commercial lending for the income that the four units generate, even though you're living in one unit? How would that work?
Yes. So I would first exhaust the residential path, right? Because under the residential path, if you have a fourplex and you have enough income and we have enough rental income to work with, you would get better terms. You would get in with 20% down, or less if it's your residence, and you will get up to 30-year amortization. You will get a better rate. Your appraisals are cheaper. I would exhaust that first. But if that option doesn't work, right, then under commercial, absolutely, we would look at the income the 3 units are generating. These units have to be legal, and we have to see what the expenses of that fourplex are going to be. So taxes, insurance, utilities that you're paying for. We have to factor some vacancies, whether or not it's going to be vacant. That's how commercial lenders think. And then we come to something called net operating income. I actually have a calculator for that. If listeners want a copy of the calculator, they can just email us. And then we determine based on that how much loan that fourplex would qualify for. Generally, the maximum loan amount is 75% of the value, where under Path 1 you can get 80%. Unless we go to CMHC, which deals with, fourplexes and up. But for a duplex, triplex, 75% of the value would be your maximum, 25-year amortization would be your maximum. And appraisals would be a little bit more. So to answer your question, absolutely, we can take that route, but I would exhaust the cheaper options first before I go there.
You're saying like going with the lenders being like the A lenders being like the top 5 type of banks is what you're talking about. And then there's this other tier, like if we exhausted all that and you could go to commercial lending. So is the interest rates like just a bit higher too than say the top 5 banks that people tend to think of?
Yes. So basically you go A, which are the banks, the cheapest rates. Then there is B and credit unions, which is the next layer up, and they're more expensive by about 1%. Okay. And then we go commercial once we've exhausted these two. And with commercial rates, I would say they're cheaper than sometimes the B lender rates, but you have to look at the full costs involved in the process beyond the rate, right? So the rate is one aspect, and you may get a 3-point-something rate on a commercial approval, but your amortization may be shorter, 25 years versus the 30 years you can get. So if you care about cash flow, you would cash flow better under a 30 years, although your rate is a little higher. You also have to look at appraisal. How much is appraisal going to cost you? A residential appraisal with an A or a B lender is definitely going to be cheaper than an appraisal with a commercial lender. Okay. And then there are some other fees that you have to account for, again, beyond the rate, because the commercial lenders may charge you a fee. There are sometimes also broker fees in commercial financing versus residential, because in residential, most lenders pay the brokers, where in commercial, the brokers have to charge. So I would look at the rate and all of these costs that are involved as part of the assessment.
Okay, so yeah, that sounds a bit more expensive, but it's a cool option out there, which is really, really interesting, especially for people who like you said, self-employed or have small businesses. Their income is like, they pay themselves a little bit of money, but their corporation has big chunk of money. This might be an option for them. And you commented the amortization's like what, max 25 years?
Yes, unless we go to CMHC and they do finance multi-units starting at 4 units, you can get 30 or 35 or even 40 years under commercial financing with CMHC, which you cannot get on the residential side. But again, the property itself has to meet the CMHC guidelines, its income and expense have to be enough based on their guidelines to support a loan, with such an amortization. And also from a lender standpoint, when they offer you an extended amortization, think about it. They're lending money on a property. If the appraiser says that this property is going to live for 30 years, the lender would not lend you a 40 years loan on the commercial side, because they want to make sure that the asset is going to survive long enough beyond their loan, right? So again, possible, but there is this criteria about what's called economic life of the property, and it has to qualify.
The building actually has to be around for longer than 40 years. It can't just fall. Yeah, it can't be like a 200-year-old building that hasn't been renovated or anything. Okay, I get it. Like, that's just logical. Oh, cool. Well, that's a really cool hack. What's your next hack? I'm really interested to hear all your hacks then.
I'll jump shortly into the next hack, Tracy, but I just want to mention something on this commercial financing, which is another key tip for clients. So we've worked with clients who would pick up a property with private money initially because they don't qualify for any mortgage on the residential side. They renovate it. They maybe turn it to a duplex or add more units to it or increase the income, make it prettier and generate more money, essentially, right? And then we refinance it commercial and pay off the private. So it's a very cool trick, again, to scale. Now I'm going to move to the last one, which is using other people's money. And that's referred to also as joint ventures. So let's say you and I want to invest together. Let's say I maxed out on my financing with the residential lenders. I ran out of money and I have no more money. I've reached my capacity and I don't want to use private money, okay? I can come to you, Tracy, and say, Tracy, let's partner on a deal. And Tracy, you maybe don't have time to find properties, manage properties, renovate properties, but I have all of the skills, right? So you can come to my deal, bring money to the deal, and we set up an agreement called a joint venture agreement, and then you qualify for the mortgage, okay? And because you are qualifying for the mortgage, basically you may be starting, from ground zero. I've maxed out, but you haven't maxed out. So that's your value. That's how this relationship would work. We complement each other. And under a joint venture arrangement, essentially for investors who pursue that strategy, they can work with multiple joint venture partners, right, to grow the portfolio. The downside of a joint venture is, for me, is that I have to share some of the returns with you, right? Like I've seen investors share the equity, I've seen investors share the cash flow, and I've seen investors share both. But hey, you know what? It's better to share a piece of the pie than to own a big piece of a zero, right? So that's another tactic that I've seen investors use to scale. So combine these three, we've had investors build massive portfolios.
The joint ventures, I've done a few of them, but it's like you said, it is one of the more expensive options. But I like the fact that you said, yeah, it's better than having a big fat zero. So you want to really grow your portfolio, you're going to have to look at all these options. I was curious with the joint ventures, how do people match up? I know I've found, investors to invest in my deals, but how does your brokerage help with that situation?
We don't match investors to joint venture partners, okay? We are brokers, so we set up loans. So if someone is looking for a private lender, we can locate a private lender, but we don't set up partnerships. That's outside of our licensing. Where we help joint venture partners and clients is, let's say you have a joint venture partner, you can introduce your joint venture partner to us. We will make sure that they are mortgage ready to hit the ground running so that when you find a deal, there are no surprises. We make sure that we have done their financing roadmap. This way, we've positioned their financing so that they can qualify for multiple mortgages if you guys are talking about investing in multiple properties over time. So that's our role in the process. And of course, we maintain strict confidentiality. The fact that your partners means nothing from an information sharing standpoint, we respect that, but that's the role we play as brokers, but we don't match up partners together.
Yeah, that would, it wouldn't be I wouldn't see that as a good thing anyway, just because I always think like if you're doing a joint venture, you got to think of it as like a marriage. Like you're going in a relationship, very long term relationship. So you better be able to hang out with this person and deal with the, the downsides of real estate investing, which is sometimes there's going to be repairs, like a roof repair, and that could be costly. You're going to have to talk to the other person about it. So, but what you do is what you're saying is that you make sure that they're ready, mortgage ready for the next deal. So that's really good that you do all that due diligence, which is like, that's a lot. Thank you, Dahlia. Thank you so much for sharing your time and sharing your expertise. This is so helpful. And I know you kept talking about planning. And I know you have some announcements. Can you share what that is and how it will help investors?
We have a solution and a service called the financing roadmap. And it is basically a kit that we give clients when they go through a planning session with us that outlines everything related to the financing of their next set of deals and where the opportunities are. So we talk about what's the best way to take equity? What is that going to look like? So we line up our money up front before we go invest. We talk about how we're going to structure the next deal, the second one, the third one. Where's the money going to come from? What terms are they going to expect? We talk about where they can save in their portfolio, like on interest. Also, given the interest rate environment, today was the Bank of Canada rate announcement, and they increased by another 50 points. Right now, as part of the financing roadmap, we're going through these discussions actively to say, okay, here is where you should lock, or here is where you should stay afloat. We're also stress testing portfolios. So we're running scenarios to say, okay, what if the rates go up by 1 or 1.5%? What does that look like for you? And how can you prepare for it? Okay, so and finally, how to maximize on borrowing power, because for investors, they're always looking to grow. So that's our financing roadmap service, and it is unique on the street. And this is how we've helped investors plan better, hedge better, and grow as well.
Hello, everyone. So my key takeaways with this episode was like, there are actually many, many different products available for financing unlimited rental properties if you choose to scale to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plus rental properties. The sky is kind of like the limit, because we've just talked about how you can use your own traditional financing with the banks, and you can look at refinancing after so many years to take out the equity and go buy your next rental property, or you use home equity line of credits, which are like credit cards against your home. And once you've exhausted that bucket, then you can move on to a very cool product, which is commercial lending. And I found that really interesting, because I think when you're in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, or even Calgary, where real estate is actually getting more and more expensive, you can actually subsidize your living costs and still get this really cool product called commercial lending, where you could qualify the total amount of income collected in that rental property versus just solely relying on your income. And I think this is a really cool strategy, especially maybe if you don't have a partner in this, or maybe you're self-employed, maybe you have a small business. But the point is that your income may not be enough to qualify for the traditional mortgages with the top 5 lenders in Canada. And then we also talked about joint ventures. Now, I always say this is a great strategy, but it's also the most expensive strategy. But if you think about it, if you think about how you can plan out all your investments in the upcoming decade, you could see the sky is pretty much the limit, and there's so much actual money available to finance your next rental property. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is very, very informative, even for me, and I've been in this real estate investing journey for almost, I think, more than 15 years now. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video.